Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This would have been your first lecture for Business Studies 3, and if you did not make it, I have decided to record the lecture so that you have access if you registered late or arrived late or whatever you happen to do. Anyhow, the first topic that we're going to be looking at is project management, which deals with how we manage projects. Why is it important? Okay, so what will we be dealing with in project management? We'll provide introduction, key definitions of what a project is and how it differs from different or regular management, look at a project schedule, different roles within a project communication, and then I will look at the group exercise at the end, which forms part of your portfolio and also comprises the questions which you can expect to get in the final test or exam. Okay, so what is a project? A simple definition: a unique undertaking composed of interrelated activities which has a well-defined beginning and end, often involving staff from cross-functional groups that operate under specific constraints of resources, schedules, and requirements. Sorry about that. Apologies. Sorry, this is the first recording I'm doing, so it's a bit of a practice session as well. Okay, so what are the key elements within that definition? Number one, it is a undertaking which has a clear beginning and end, i.e. it is something that you do that has a start date and an end date. And they mention there staff from cross-functional groups within organizations. We often involve people from different departments in a project, and it often functions outside of your normal project or your normal management work within an organization. Perhaps we can come to how it differs from normal management here. Normal management concerns the day-to-day running of the organization. So it is about performing tasks on a daily basis, where we, for instance, like security or cleaning or customer service, etc. But we perform these tasks every day, year in, year out, etc. And it doesn't come to an end. Whereas a project is a very specific task that has a start date and it has a very specific end date. In the case of your studies, your subjects could each be regarded as a project, and the assignments or assessments within those subjects would be sub-projects within the larger project that you need to complete. What they also say, specific constraints of resources, schedules, and requirements. And in the case of your studies, your constraints relate to the amount of time that is available to you. It relates to the amount of time that is available to you and other resources, but in many regards it is about the amount of time that you have available to you. Okay, so now we'll be looking at the 4 phases that any project comprises. So any project can generally be broken down into 4 broad phases. The first phase is where you define the project. So what is included in this project and what is not included in the project? What are the boundaries of the project? So in the case of Business Study 3, let's say your first assignment was your first project that you had to complete for the subject, and I gave you a clear outline of what should be included in the question and what should not be included in the question. So it states to you what is expected. It's also known as your project brief, where you're told what needs to be done in this project. So very important about what's in it and what is not in the project at the end of the day. So in terms of the definition of the outcomes, what is the objective? What is the end goal of the project? So your first assignment, the end goal was to produce an assignment where you analyze certain factors within the global environment of a particular country that are allocated to you. What are the expected desired results? So I outlined to you what the different sections are that you expected to include, as well as how many resources that you were meant to use and the type of resources. How success will be measured, I gave you a marking rubric which stated how marks will be allocated for the subject or for the assignment. The time frame, you got a deadline. In fact, you got a number of deadlines. And then the resource implications, you needed to figure those out in terms of how much time you needed to do everything required for the assignment. We often underestimate those things in terms of we think that something will take a lot less time than it actually does at the end of the day. Now, the scope is a clear description of what should be included and what should not be included in the project. So it sets the boundaries of the project. And when we go outside those boundaries, it's called project creep. And that's when we start to look at things or start to do things that are not required by the project's client. In this instance, it was me. So I told you specifically, don't bind your projects and don't put frilly pictures and crap in the project. That would be outside, and it wastes time and wastes resources. The second phase of the project is about planning the project. And here I speak about the 5 whiskies in a hotel. Who, what, when, where, when, why, and how. So you need to answer each one of these questions when you plan your project. I've got a 7-step process here for project planning. The first step is identifying the parameters or the constraints. What are the requirements for the project? Quality specifications, cost, budget that's available to you, the time that's available to you, etc. And what are the trade-offs? So guys, if we had unlimited time, unlimited resources, we'd be able to get any amount of quality we like. But we've got limited time and resources in which we must attempt to produce a product that is to the satisfaction of the manager or the client at the end of the day. So the second step is to identify hotspots. So this is where we can expect problems. So in terms of assignments, your problems are often around printers and binding and things like that you run around with like chickens without heads just before you have to hand in your assignment. So you need to identify where possible problems could arise beforehand and then make provision for these. Third step is break the project into hunks or chunks. So you break the project down into manageable parts so that it becomes more manageable, it becomes more achievable at the end of the day. And so you can then assign individual tasks within the larger project. So for instance, with the assignment that you did at the beginning of the year, it had a number of sections, and you could break that down into or you could take those sections and assign them to different people in your project team. Okay. The fourth step is writing down the tasks in sequence. So you need to then plan out the tasks and what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, etc. So it's important because a number of those tasks will need to be done in parallel to one another. And we'll get to a Gantt chart now, which is one of the tools that we use to plan our project out effectively. And very important, the fifth step, identify who is responsible for each item. So you need to allocate responsibilities and what resources that person needs to perform the task that you have allocated to them. Because if you do not allocate responsibilities, it's likely that things will get left by the wayside and not get done. Sixth step is about determining when each task will be done. So we need to put time frames to them and put dates in. So we often rely on one part of a project. Let's take, so the person who's writing the conclusion needs all the other parts of the assignment before they can sit down and write the conclusion. So and the person who's doing the technical care needs everything before they can put the whole assignment together. So you need to plan out about when each task needs to be done in order to deliver the whole project on time. And then the seventh step, probably one of the most important, is determine the project cost. So what will the final cost be? In your case, the cost is, as I said, related to time. How much time will you need in order to complete this project successfully? And we normally under budget for most of these things. So one needs to be realistic in the amount of time that is required to complete a project successfully. Okay, so any project has three key constraints. They're known as the triple project constraints. You can look on the internet, any project management literature. Okay, so what's the ideal for any project is to provide a high quality product at as low a price or cost as possible and as quickly as possible. But the reality is that if we have unlimited budget, resources, and unlimited time, the likelihood that we can produce great quality is pretty much there. However, the reality is with most projects, we've got limited budget, limited resources, and we have got limited time, and these impact on the quality of the project at the end of the day. So just think of yourself with an assignment where you've budgeted the amount of time that you needed to complete the assignment successfully and been running around at the last moment and basically put something together that the lecturer has not been happy with, i.e. here your time caused the quality of your project to be deficient in the eyes of the client, the lecturer in this case. Okay, the next next slide just says literally the words on the slide: costs, the financial side of any project; scope, the project goal; and the time, the project schedule, the amount of time that's available to you. Okay, there are a number of project management tools available to you to help you plan projects. You can go online and search Google for project planning tools, and a whole number of tools will come up. The tool that I'm going to focus on in this lecture is known as a Gantt chart. So what is a Gantt chart? It is a graphic representation of a project where you map out the different steps that are required to complete the project, together with the time frames for each step. So if you look at the slide over here, so market research is from the 16th to the 30th of August. The final specifications is from 30th to the 30th of August to the 13th of September, etc. But you notice there's a second market research step from the 4th of October to the 18th of October, but this then overlaps with the detailed design and the software development. The point is, with any project, we tend to find that some steps have to be completed before others, but also a number of steps may coincide or overlap with one another. And the point of a Gantt chart is so that we can graphically represent all the steps in the project in order to give us a picture of what is required, and we can also then map responsibilities, etc., and the project manager then can monitor the completion of the project against these time frames that are set out in the Gantt chart. Okay, there are two resources that are available to you on Blackboard. There is a video that looks at goes over how to set up a Gantt chart in Excel, and then there is a Excel template that you can use to set up a Gantt chart to plan out your year and all the assignments, etc., that you need to complete for your studies. Alternatively, I've given you the web addresses for those resources, and you can search on YouTube for how to create a Gantt chart in Excel updated 2018.
There are a lot of Excel Gantt.
So I don't know why how that slide got in. Okay. Sorry, the slide jumped in there. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, the third phase of a project is implementing and monitoring. Once you've done the planning, you've defined the project, you've done the planning, now you actually have to do the job. So you need to, as a project manager, monitor the progress of the project and check that things are running the way that they are supposed to run at the end of the day. It's important to monitor the progress, track milestones, i.e. or have different responsibilities and tasks being completed along the way, and communicate with the different people involved in the project. Because if you fail to do this, you may find that the project overall is delayed because some or other step has not been completed, which impacts on the overall completion of the project. for example, in the case of assignments, students come to me and say, yeah, but this person didn't do this or that person didn't do that. But at the end of the day, it impacts on your overall mark that you get for the assignment, because either you run round and try to do what the missing team member didn't do, or you leave that out of your assignment and you lose the marks for it at the end of the day, i.e. it impacts on the quality of your project. Now, the final phase is the completion of the project. So you have done the whole project, so you've put the whole project together and it's been handed to the client, and the people are released back to their normal roles, etc. And here you get feedback from the client in terms of their satisfaction with the project that you have completed. So in the case of your assignment, your lecturer sits and he marks it, and he tells you either this was a great assignment, you did what was expected of you and you get a very good mark, or you didn't really do what was expected of you and your mark doesn't look so good at the end of the day. So the final phase is about your client expressing their satisfaction about the project that you have delivered. I've already spoken about project management, but what is project management? So if you look at the slide over here, a set of skills and methods of planning, organizing and managing a project from inception to its successful completion. So what does a project manager do? So just the definition again, a set of skills and methods of planning, organizing and managing a project from inception to its successful completion. So what does a project manager do? A project manager is a person who monitors, makes sure that things are being done at the standard when they are supposed to be done, who makes sure that everyone else in the project team is doing what they are supposed to do when it is supposed to be done. So the project manager is responsible for leading and coordinating the project effort from its inception to its completion. So you want a competent person managing your project, because they are responsible for making things happen. They are the persons that actually ensure the successful completion of the project. We've already spoken about the different tasks that are incorporated in a project. So this list of tasks that are included in a project is known as a project schedule. Why are these so important? Because they add value. They tell us what needs to be done, when it needs to be done. So it is essentially the ingredients of the project. It's a recipe for a project to be completed with. So, a Schedule provides commitment about when different things will be done. So if you have a big project, your client knows when different deliverables will be on the table, when they will have been done or delivered. It encourages everyone on the project to see their effort as part of the whole, as they see how they fit into the bigger picture. It provides a tool for breaking work into manageable chunks. So, as I already said, it breaks down things into smaller parts that are more manageable and more possible for you to handle at the end of the day. And it enables you to measure the project and how far you are towards its completion. Any project, any schedule has three parts or three components. The first one is the planning component, where defining what needs to be done, the requirements, and the deciding on how it will be done. So it's breaking down the larger project into different parts, then implementing, and the third part is testing and evaluating. As you will most likely know, you have planned out a number of projects in your life and then discovered that you were unrealistic when it came to the amount of time or other resources that were required in order to complete the project successfully. This slide simply shows another example of a Gantt chart or a project schedule. So the different tasks are mapped out against a diary with different start and end times, but you can also allocate the responsibilities within those so everyone knows who does what and when it needs to be done. Now, what are the different project roles? So, who takes what responsibilities within a project? So, the reality is that every project is different, but there tend to be fairly consistent roles within the performance of a project or the completing of a project. Sometimes these roles are formally allocated, but often they are informally allocated, as you will know when you assign roles within your group assignments, etc. It's not always recorded formally, and sometimes individuals can occupy more than one role in the completion of a project. I've already spoken about my project manager. So he's the person who's responsible for the execution of the project. He defines the low-level requirements, but also then monitors the project during its lifespan and makes sure that things are done when they are supposed to be done at the quality level at which they are supposed to be done. So your project manager is continuously monitoring the different members of the team to making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do when it is supposed to be done. So my project manager is very much at the center of any project. He's the person who's responsible for the overall running of the project, and the business owner, who is the client, and all the other project people report to the project manager. Not necessarily that the business owner reports to the project manager, but rather that he's the person that the project manager would likely liaise with during the project. Okay, my next role is my business owner, or is the customer of the project. In this case, or in your case, it is your lecturer who is your customer, who initiates and sponsors the project, i.e., the person who orders the project and also essentially helps to provide the resources that are necessary to complete the project, but also communicates and motivates the project and why it needs to be done. But key factor is that your client defines the project requirements on a very high level. So the client says, this is what I want done, and provides the broad specifications for the project. I've just put a little cartoon in here that relates to people passing the buck. But at the end of the day, you need to deliver on a project, and your client is not interested who did what or who did not do what. Your client is interested that his or her deliverable was delivered on time at the necessary or the required quality that was expected of the project. I.e., me as your lecturer, I don't care what happened in your team. I do care that you did the work and that you have delivered an assignment to me that meets the requirements that are set out in your course outline. Okay, another role is the content lead. That is the person who is responsible for acquiring and managing the content of the project, which may include things like data, so resources, in your case, images, instructional content, or maybe the person in a more practical project who acquires the resources for the project to go ahead with. The technical lead is the person who owns the technical authority of the project, who essentially defines how the project is built, technology related, etc. So this would be the person often, in your case, who would put everything together and make sure that your assignment is laid out properly and formatted properly, etc. But in a work-based project, it might be the person who makes sure that all the technological aspects related to the project work properly and are in place. Okay, so then there can be a whole other lot of roles within the project. So depending on the nature of the project, you may have specific specialists who are involved in the project that you've brought in because of the nature of the project. So the other team members are literally as wide as the possibility of different projects, the type of roles that you bring into the project depending on the end product that needs to be delivered. So they would often be experts in specific areas relating to the specific task that you're trying to achieve. Okay, so at project initiation, so when you start the project, it's important to have a shared understanding about who is going to do what and what the goal of the project is. If you don't have a clear understanding of who is responsible for what, then the project is likely to fail. Again, think of your assignments where you have arguments about who was allocated what responsibilities. and then you get to close to submission date and they say, didn't you do that, but didn't you do that, etc. And there's a lot of conflict and the project isn't at the requirements of the assignment that was set out for you. So allocating responsibilities at the beginning of a project is key. Okay, then the key aspect of any project is the communication. So keeping people informed about what is going on within the project and when it should be done, etc. So there are various tools that are available to you. You will be aware of most of them. You will have used them at some stage, likely in managing your university or school projects. But formal face-to-face meetings, a formal meeting normally has an agenda and minutes are kept, etc. But often we use informal meetings where we meet with each other in the library or in the cafeteria or wherever you meet up and discuss what should be done and when should be done, etc. There's project management software. A very well-known project management software is MS Project. Then there is WhatsApp, Zoom, email, conference calls, Skype. An important tool is shared documents these days. So you have Google Documents, which you can make available to all of the team members, which are particularly helpful because you can see who's done what and what quality they have performed at, or what standard they have performed at, and you can edit these documents as you go along. So Google, Dropbox, etc. provide us with shared documentation. Okay. What goes wrong with communication? Okay. The key aspects that often go wrong with any communication relate to a lack of communication between members, i.e. you don't keep each other informed, so you don't know what's going on. But just as much as too little communication, too much communication can also be bad. Just think of your WhatsApp groups where people post continuously. You tend to then ignore some of the WhatsApps, or you turn off the notifications, etc., and you miss important communication. So too much communication can be almost as bad as too little communication. And the project manager's role is generally to facilitate the right amount of communication within any project. Okay. Finally, there's a set of questions. These questions were dealt with feedback in the class. You have the answers above, so I suggest that you sit down, and if you haven't done it yet, you work out these questions, because these again are the questions that you can expect to encounter in the test or in the exam at the end of the year. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So there are 7 questions that you need to take into account. Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen.